Hi, my name is Chris Jackson. I'm a business attorney. I've been one for 25 years. If you watch my prior video on the Corporate Transparency Act, who has to comply, what information you have to provide to the U.S. Treasury Department Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, and when you have to provide that information, I promised you that I would follow up that video with a tutorial on how to provide the information and walk you through a screen share, and that is exactly what I'm going to do today. Go ahead and select the link below, and that will take you to the page at FinCEN where you have to begin the process of providing that information, and then I will take you through that process and try to answer every question I think you might have along the way. Okay, if you selected the link in the description under my video, you would have arrived here. You will see that you are at the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, also known as FinCEN. It's a department of the Treasury. Here is where we file the Beneficial Ownership Information Report for an entity that is required to file this report. Sometimes this is referred to as BOIR. You may also see BOI. You have two ways in which you can file the report. One is by submitting a PDF. You can prepare it here and then submit it here. For the purposes of this video, we're going to do it all online. So I'm going to have you go ahead and select Prepare and Submit BOIR under File Online BOIR. Okay, on this first page, we're simply going to tell them what type of report this is. You have four types of reports you could submit here. The initial report, which is the one we are going to do today. I'm assuming that's why you are watching this video. You can also correct a prior report. After you submit this report, you're going to get a transcript of the report you just submitted. If you notice that you made a mistake in that transcript, or you realize later on you may have made a mistake, you can go back and correct that same report. If you need to update a prior report, let's just say your company address changed, or you have a new beneficial owner that you have to add to the report, you can update the report. If your entity was an entity that required this BOIR, but later became an exempt entity, and I'm not going to go into what that means. I have another video which I will link to in the description under this video, which covers what is an exempt entity, what is a beneficial owner, what is a company applicant. But essentially there are some entities that are exempt. They do not have to file a report. For example, if you have over a certain number of employees in your company and you've exceeded certain revenue thresholds, then you may not have to file a report. If you're a certain type of entity, like a bank or other institution, you will not have to file a report. So essentially, if you filed a report in the past when you're not an exempt entity, now you achieve the thresholds required to become an exempt entity, then you can go ahead and file a newly exempt entity report just to update the status of this company. Next. Okay, part one is reporting company information. This is information about the company itself. And by the way, you will notice that they have these need help tabs. You can click on them and you will get instructions. So for example, this first box down here says request to receive FinCEN ID. If you check this box, you're going to get your own special FinCEN ID for this entity. If you ever have to correct or update the report, you can simply enter in the FinCEN ID without having to repeat a lot of the same information that they're going to request here. So I'm going to go ahead and select number 3, request to receive FinCEN ID. I think that's important should I need to update or correct a future report. All right, legal name of the company. You want to just put the company name here, whether it's an LLC or corporation or partnership, whatever type of company it is, just put the legal name in here. I'm going to go ahead and use Chris Jackson Mobile Dog Grooming LLC because I've used that name in the past in prior videos, and I want to stay consistent. And now that I have typed it out, I realize that I should have used a sample name that was a bit shorter, like Chris Jackson LLC. Number 6, alternate name or trade name or DBA. So if you have your LLC doing business under an assumed name, a fictitious business name, a DBA, you would add that here. Okay, form of identification. So this is in regards, again, to your entity, and your entity has 3 options, an EIN, an SSN, ITIN, or foreign. Most of you are just going to simply select EIN. If you have an entity in the United States, you should have a tax ID, or employer identification number is what EIN stands for, but it's essentially a tax ID of the entity. If for some reason you didn't obtain a tax ID for your entity, then you can enter your social security number if that is the number that is tied to the entity. You can also see that if you are not a US based entity, you can select foreign here. I'm going to go ahead and select EIN. Tax identification number. I'm going to put in a fictitious tax ID for my fictitious business. I, of course, don't recommend you put anything fictitious or wrong or incorrect in this BOIR because you're going to have to sign this under the penalty of perjury. This is, of course, just a demo. I'm not going to submit anything. Okay, jurisdiction of formation or first registration. This is where you formed your entity. In my case, it's United States of America, the state of Wyoming. Part C does not apply. Current US address, you want to input the address of your company. Next. Okay, on this next page, they are trying to determine whether or not you have to provide information about the company applicant. The company applicant is essentially the person that formed your entity in that initial jurisdiction, in my case, Wyoming. That could be you if you formed it through an entity formation service. It could be an attorney of yours or a CPA. However, if your company was formed prior to January 1st, 2024, then you do not need to provide any company applicant information. If it was formed after January 1st, 2024, then you have to put in the company applicant information right here. Number 16 asks whether you are an existing reporting company. This essentially just means, were you formed before January 1st, 2024? If the answer is yes, you can check 16. And when you check number 16 that you're an existing reporting company, then you don't have to complete any information in regards to the company applicant. Since some of the people watching this video presumably will have formed their entities after January 1st, 2024, I'm going to assume that there is a company applicant. You can have more than one company applicant. They're going to request here the company applicant information. And if you have to add an additional one, you can just click this box up here. Now, if your company applicant already has a FinCEN ID, so let's just say you have an attorney that formed this entity for you, or you formed the entity using an entity services company. Maybe you watch one of my videos, you did it on your own, and you have already established a FinCEN ID. You submitted the information about yourself or your lawyer or your CPA or whoever formed this entity for you already has a FinCEN ID. You would simply input the FinCEN ID right here and you'd be done with this portion of the report. Since I do not have a FinCEN ID, I'm going to go ahead and put in my own information since I formed my own entity. Okay, so legal name and date of birth, I put in my own name here. I am my own company applicant here. If you are filling it in for, say, a paralegal that formed this entity for you or an attorney, maybe they will be filling this in for you. But if they're requesting that you go ahead and complete the BOIR and input their information, you can get their information and input it here. In my case, I'm putting in my own information. Okay, when you get down to current address, you can see here when you select need help that business address is not normally what you would use unless you had a paralegal or a lawyer or a CPA form the entity for you. In that case, you could put in their business address and you would put, say, the paralegal or CPA or lawyer's name up here. But if that's not the case, you have to enter in a residential address, which I have done. Okay, so form of identification and issuing jurisdiction, you are essentially validating your ID that you are a real person. You go here and select the ID type and you can choose from driver's license, passport, state, local, tribe issued ID. I'm going to go with state driver's license, identifying number. So in my case, this would be the driver's license number. Country, jurisdiction, United States for me. I'm going to stick with Wyoming. Identifying document image. So from here, you just want to upload the driver's license that you just identified up here. Okay, so I'm not going to upload my actual driver's license, but I have, as an example, a picture that I've taken. Next. All right, here's where you input the actual beneficial owner information. If you have more than one beneficial owner, you can check this box here and add their information next after you put the first beneficial owner information in. What is a beneficial owner? Again, my prior video goes into great detail to let you know exactly who would be considered a beneficial owner. But one definition of a beneficial owner is a person or entity that owns 25% or more of the company. Another definition is a person or entity that controls 25% or more of the voting interest in the company. So, for example, if you own 10% of a company, but you have an agreement with the other owners that you have voting control of, say, 30%, that means you control the votes of more than 25%, so you would be considered a beneficial owner despite not having 25% actual ownership rights. A beneficial owner might also be someone who controls the company or has a controlling interest in the company, like a CEO or an officer. Assuming you understand who must report as a beneficial owner, again, I encourage you to watch my prior video on this very topic, then we can move on. Note that number 35 is available in the event that a minor child, let's say I decided to form an LLC and give my minor child 25% interest in that LLC, then I would put my information, not the minor child's information, as a beneficial owner. Once again, if you've already submitted a report for a beneficial owner, that beneficial owner has already submitted a report and has a FinCEN ID. Instead of going through the process of identifying their name and their address and their date of birth and their ID and uploading a picture of the ID, you can just put the FinCEN ID in and you will be done. All right, so this next question is there an exempt entity that is one of the beneficial owners or the entire beneficial owner of this particular entity? So if you have a parent company that is an exempt entity because it has met the revenue and employee thresholds and other thresholds or other requirements that make it an exempt entity from these reporting requirements, then you can select exempt entity here. You can put in the entity's name and you press next, and when you press next, you're basically done with the report and you don't have to provide any information beyond that. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to say there is no exempt entity. So you will see here in number 38 that the beneficial owner can still be a company, but in this case, it's not an exempt entity. It's just a company that's not exempt. So let's say, for example, you have a holding company in Wyoming. It's one of the structures I often recommend in my videos, and that holding company is an entity that you own. And then that Wyoming entity owns, say, a Texas LLC, and that Texas LLC owns some rental properties. In this case, the beneficial owner of the Texas LLC is just one owner, and that owner is the Wyoming LLC as the holding company and owner and member of the Texas LLC. So you would put in the entity's legal name here. If that is not the case and there is no entity that owns this entity for which you are filing the report, you would put in the individual's last name and first name and date of birth. Okay, residential address, input the residential address of the beneficial owner. All right, so I input the information. I just so happen, it's just a coincidence that I live at 1234 Beneficial Owner Street. Okay, form of identification, issuing jurisdiction, exact same information that is requested and required for the company applicant. All right, so I completed that information for the beneficial owner. I'm gonna go ahead and select next. All right, so we are at the last page, the beneficial ownership information report submission page, and you put in your email and confirm your email, your first name, your last name. You want to agree and certify that you're authorized to file this report on behalf of the company and that everything contained in this report is true and correct. You confirm down here that you are in fact a human being. And then once you select Submit BOIR, you will get a transcript of all the information you just submitted. You should go through that, make sure it's correct. If you need to make a correction, it's better to do it now, get it out of the way. There's a time limit within which you have to make corrections, so just get it done and move on and get back to running your business. Thank you. Well, I hope you found the video helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comment section. I get to the questions on a regular basis. And if you like the video, I encourage you to give me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to my channel, I would ask you kindly to do so by hitting the subscribe button. Thank you very much. I wish you and your company and your business all the best. Have a great day. Thank you.